Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Mind What Matters, where we talk all things caregiving, and Liz and I do our best to mind what matters. I am smiling ear to ear. You would think we were about to talk about, I don't know, clowns, or I don't like clowns, like something funny and silly, and I don't know. We were about to have a comedian on.
I was about to say like continuous climaxing or something actually joyful. Like, what?
No, you're right. You're right.
Clowns?
I don't know.
Clowns are terrifying. What's wrong with you?
Clowns are awful. You're right. They're awful. Sorry, not to, say negative things about any clowns out there bringing joy to people's lives. But the smile that's on my face is because of our guest, and we're going to talk about grief today. And why does that put a smile on my face? I'm going to tell you why right now. Because once your life has been turned upside down by grief, and I call it, there's like everything that came before and everything that will come after, it marks your life in such a definitive way that what comes after is an absolute, like, I tried to describe it as like somebody took a baseball bat to my entire body and I was like shattered into a million different pieces. And then there was me that existed before, and then there was me that I now had to put back together.
Mm-hmm.
But what you discover during grief is that there are pieces of you want to let go of forever, the people pleasing you. Well, how do I let go of that? So you go down the path of figuring that out. And then you go down the path of not wanting to small talk anyway. I want to get rid of that. And then you have to go in rooms where people do it. It's uncomfortable. Grief is such a road and a ride, and it's sacred, and it's beautiful, and it's brutal. And if you're doing it right, and I know there's not a right or a wrong way, but there is, meaning if you let grief do its job.
Yep.
It changes you forever. And and there's my people, and my people are the people that can talk about grief. And that's why I'm smiling.
It's one of those things where, and I literally, my best friend just lost her mother last night. Nikki, my other best friend. This is like college best friend, right? She's known me since I was 18 years old.
She came before me.
She came before you. That's right. But basically, her mom had Alzheimer's for a long time, but she died pretty suddenly in the Alzheimer's space. Like, to just up and die is not so common. She is just really going through it, I think, because it was so sudden. And one of the first things I told her was, if you just let it, if you just let grief be inside you and you don't avoid it and you don't run from it and you don't try and push it away or dismiss it, you will be so much better off, and you will become the truest version of yourself.
Yes.
Because we should almost be willing to pay for it, the suffering, because it is so valuable for what comes after. I've said that. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. And it's not like you truly believe that in the moment, when you're racking with suffering and it hurts so badly that you just think, good Lord, like, I'm not going to make it. The pain gets so intense that you can't even imagine a world where you keep existing day after day after day in that. But slowly you do. And that's what I tell everyone who's walking this journey of Alzheimer's, everyone that's a caregiver of a terminal disease patient. The healing hurts, but the healed you on the other side of the healing is the best part of life. It is truly what marks, I think, our humanness. It's humanity, right? We were born to do this. It's been happening millions and millions of years, or however long we've been.
But it's been happening. I always say that people think they're running away from the pain, but they're actually running away from the healing. And the other thing that to this day is so striking to me, and you and I are different, sister, because we talk about everything, and we always have since moment one when we connected. But what was so striking is that even though this is something we will all experience, and it has been happening since the beginning of time, nobody talks to you about it. Nobody trains you. Nobody, like, it is not in our culture currently. I do see it more, which is why we brought our guest on today. everyone.
You guys.
Well, what about that for a transition?
You are in for such a treat. Read her bio and let's get her in here because
Meghan
so
Reardon
excited.
Jarvis. Yes, Meghan Reardon Jarvis. She is an author, a podcast host of Grief is My Side Hustle, a 2-time TEDx speaker, which I listen to both, educator, psychotherapist specializing in trauma and grief. Oh my God, how you did not become one of our best friends years ago is beyond me, but we're here today. She, drawing on her professional experience with loss and over 20 years in clinical practice, she developed the Grief Mentor, MENTOR method, an interactive framework that helps individuals create personalized, grief-informed daily practices. Meghan teaches at leading healing centers, including Kripalu, I think that's how you say it, Omega and the Cape Cod Institute, and founded the Grieftastic Book Fair. Like your middle school book fair, only sadder. She is the author of Can Anyone Tell Me? Essential Questions About Grief and Loss, and the memoir End of the Hour, which explores her experience with PTSD. Yes, ma'am. Oh my goodness. After the deaths of her parents. A sought-after corporate consultant, Meghan has worked with Fortune 500 companies such as Lululemon, Pinterest, and Johnson & Johnson to increase emotional fluency in the workplace. Are you kidding? And she serves as an advisor to the End Well Symposium. Meghan, thank you so much for being with us today. And everyone that's listening on Mind What Matters podcast, we're so happy to have you.
Welcome.
I'm ecstatic to be here. This feels like, landing on a bus with for a car trip, like you're taking a trip with people who are like, oh my God, I already have a crush on these ones. I hope they'll sit near me. So I'm so excited to be here.
Are you kidding? I have your
ever had.
Yeah. Also, I have your email address now. So slowly but surely, this is what we do, Liz and I.
We're going to be in sleepover in pajamas soon.
We collect our favorite people. I'm going to get your cell phone number. We're going to be on the three of us are going to have our own text chain. Maybe we should call it Grief is Our Side Hustle.
Yeah. It's like my full on hustle now, though. I was at an event where my youngest son, who's like now so much older, but at the time he was really into musical theater, and he had like the lead. He was singing like the little boy part from The Greatest Showman on the stage. And we were actually at the dress rehearsal. I brought a friend because the tickets to the event were too expensive for us to actually go to. It was like a fancy like fundraiser that he had been asked to perform in. So we were the only people in the audience watching this incredible performance, and they were describing the woman being honored. And it was like, here's her job, and here's the 9 million unbelievable ways that she like serves the community and does the things and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, and she does, like she also makes teapots as a side hustle. And my friend turned to me and was like, that's a hell of a side hustle. And I turned to her and said, yeah, well, grief is my side hustle. And she like put her finger in my face and she was like, oh, that's going to be a thing. And I was like, yeah, I felt that too. Like it is. Because at the time I was just in such deep grief that it was like, it took up all my free time. The way some people are doing a stationery store and they come home from their job and they start, printing ladybugs on paper because they're going to sell that at a farmer's market. I was like reading 188 books on grief and loss and listening to all the podcasts and trying to like get my compass points back so that I could be a person on the planet.
Well, that's the thing that I was saying, I think in the intro, the breaking, like a million pieces, you're shattered and they're outside of you. Yes. They're outside of you floating, which is also, you are no longer embodied.
Yes.
Yet, because you don't know who you are now, right?
Yes.
But also at the same time, you've never felt more 10 toes on the ground because you just went through the realest of the real things
That's
that you
it.
can possibly
That's how
navigate.
I describe it. Is the realist, like the day my dad died, I remember saying so my dad died, then my mom died, and my dad's death was hard. My mom's death was traumatic. But the day my dad died, I remember saying to my sister, saying to her, this reminds me of when the kids were born. It's like the realest my life has ever felt.
Yes.
Right? all the other nonsense of it. And I love the way you describe, like, that you just can't tolerate all the, quiet talk about the weather and who's buying a new car and whatever. When I was really unwell, right? I mean, really, I was unwell for at least a year after my mom died. But, my sweater was buttoned and my hair was combed. So I was shattered into a million pieces and, had no arms, but people were talking to my face like I was who they knew. And it infuriated me. I was like, you don't know me. You don't know me. You think I am who I was and I'm not. And I used to get really upset about that. But I just didn't have any polite behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So all the ways that you have to be polite, I couldn't, it was like being like drastically emotionally poor.
Mm-hmm.
I could not afford to stand in a space that was costing me emotional energy. So Nikki, Liz, I'm not joking. I got up and walked out of a dinner, like dropped my fork and was like, I gotta go, and walked out into the like wilderness. I got dressed to go to a Christmas party, like in a tartan dress. Now, in fairness, it was not far away. It was like around the corner. Walked in, did a lap, saw someone, and they were like, oh, are you traveling for the holidays? And I was like, absolutely. Nope. I was like, I think I said like, I'm sorry, I have to go.
Yeah.
I just didn't, it felt like life or death in those moments. Like, I am not who I was. I felt very like I did when I was a teenager, like self-conscious in this way, like everyone's looking at me, and also knowing no one's looking at me, and wanting them not to look at me, and also desperately needing them to see.
It's because your nerve endings, it's like everything's exposed, right?
It's
like you're walking around without any of your armor, without any of your shield. Like, you can't be vulnerable.
I called it I have no hard candy shell. Like the M&M when you suck off the shell. I had no hard candy shell, which made a lot of how I had been in life, which was like the first call for all the people who are having the hard thing, and also a trauma therapist to, at that time, like 25 clients who had been in hard things. I just was like, I am too permeable. This is like washing. And also I was like, can I swear on here?
Yeah.
I also was like, I don't give a shit about your story. Yeah. Like I can't see past what is in my own hands, and I don't care what you're doing with your life. And I would get really angry. Like, how freaking dare you? Somebody would be like, oh, I'm having this issue. Like my air conditioning went out. And I'm like, how dare you talk to me about your air conditioning? How dare you?
But I think that so many people, it's so real. And I appreciate, like, I was having a conversation the other day with a woman whose husband was recently diagnosed early onset. He's young.
Yeah.
And she was having such an honest conversation. She was like, he was so argumentative and crotchety, and now he's just so joyful all the time. And when I say that to people, and I go, and my reaction was, oh, that's hard.
Yeah.
And she goes, exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you.
She's like, everybody looks at me when I tell them that, like I'm crazy. Like, well, yay, just accept the joyfulness now. Yeah. Now and she's like, but I have, decades and decades of marriage. Like, what am I supposed to do with all the feelings now that I have that were never resolved or repaired at the way that he was to me before, and now I'm having to deal with this other person as if it never existed. And I was like, this is it. See, this is it. And I was like, if we were all honest.
Yes, this is it.
And
it's
we
about honesty.
did not feel ashamed by what we were going to say. And this is why safe spaces matter. This is why when we're at those parties, sometimes we retreat and just go home because we realize, like, I'm going to say something here, probably not going to go, the way that I want. So I'm just going to leave. Or I remember being at so all of this hard stuff started happening for me whenever, Hudson Bennett was born and he went into 3 open heart surgeries, and I didn't know how to exist in the world. And I found myself like at traffic lights, leaving the hospital after being there for days just to go shower and looking over at people at a cafe, drinking their lattes and eating their avocado toast and being angry at them.
Fuck you for your avocado.
I was just like, you don't have any idea what people are dealing with.
Yes.
I found that
Nikki tells that story about once every 3rd podcast. So we know if you're listening and you were the one
eating avocado toast.
Man,
listen, it's a good thing that there was a car separating me and you. But what I'm saying is like that disconnect between that kind of life that's happening and the real depths of the valley of your reality of what you're going through. The difference is so far away.
Yeah.
And it makes it really hard to be in spaces. I was at a Christmas party.
Yeah.
It was the first time my husband and I had gone out after the heart surgeries and all the things. And it was a long period of time. And it was New Year's, not Christmas. It was New Year's Eve. We were at a friend's house. I couldn't drink because I couldn't be out of control and any semblance because if something went down with Bennett. There were so many middle of the night emergency visits. There were so many, I just could never be in a place where if I had to be on, I was on. And so it hit midnight and I was like, let's go. And mind you, we're in animal onesies.
Obviously.
All of us are in animal onesies. Cut to my husband's like, just one more beer. I'm like, I'm going home. One more beer. I'm going home. Cut to, we're out in front of this house screaming at each other at the top of our lungs in animal onesies because he's saying, you're not fun anymore. And I'm like, you bet your ass I'm not. Because life was lifing so hard.
That's right.
And you find that's when you begin to feel so isolated.
That's right.
So how did you begin to handle your isolation in that moment?
Let's back up before you answer that question. Just tell our audience a little bit about
we're having a conversation. I'm getting to that.
They know who the hell I am and what.
Your mom died and then your dad died, or vice versa.
My dad and then my mom. So so the long short story is that I did have a childhood death. So when I was 8, turning 9, a person whose family we called cousins, but was not actually related to me, a 16-year-old who was like my sailing teacher in my tiny little town in Cape Cod, drowned. Just totally unexpectedly while my family was on the beach. And, it just my brother found him in the water. My mother was there when they pulled his body out. It was just an irrevocable before and after that I never understood the footprint of. So I grew up with the legacy of silence and I was in a summer community. It was the end of the summer. It was July 26, 1983. So I was going into 4th grade and I just went into 4th grade. No one back in my hometown knew anything about what happened. And after my mom died, I actually she kept all of our report cards. I'm such a bad mom because I throw everything away. But she kept and in my 4th grade report card, my English teacher, who I really wanted to like me, her first line was, Meghan is a bright but angry child. Oh. And I kept that because that's how my grief often shows up is as anger and irritability and a fight response. But it's important that you just know that my childhood was hewn with this trauma because I grew up always feeling like I'm a little different from people. And I never knew until I was having a really hard time recovering from a breakup. I'd moved to DC from Boston. And I was in a relationship that I'm going to tell you was mostly imaginary. I made up a lot of who this person was. It was kind of long distance. And so it was a lot to lose because I made it into a castle in the air. And so it was really hard to let go of. Yeah. But I could tell as this great love was unraveling that it was hitting me harder than it seemed to hit friends. that it was going to take me longer to recover from, and that I was like creating these like realities and definitions that I didn't see other women do. So I went to my first therapy appointment. I get in there and my therapist listens to me. I'm like crying about the great love that I've lost. 48 minutes out of 50, she says to me, "Did anything bad ever happen in your childhood?" And I'm like, oh shit, this bitch isn't even listening. I'm like, I can't come here. Like, she's running an agenda. And so I'm like, no, I have 5 brothers and sisters. We love each other. My parents are wonderful, like nothing bad. And then I leave and I'm like, well, I can't go back there. And I'm like getting back to my home on Capitol Hill. And I'm like, well, I mean, Chris died. I wonder if that's what she means. Like, that probably has nothing to do with anything, because nobody's ever spoken about that or talked about it or,
they just moved on as if it never happened.
Well, it was 1983. I think the book said, like, don't talk to kids about hard things back then.
It sure did.
Yeah. And so my siblings didn't talk about it. I was raised Catholic. There's a lot of silence in the Catholic faith. There's a lot of just like pray it out.
Pray it away.
Right. And if you're still struggling, it's because you're not praying enough, kind of thing. Like, you haven't given enough to God.
Oof.
And so all of that was inside. So I go back to my therapist and I'm like, so I'm not going to continue doing therapy, but I did just want you to know that this thing did. And she was like, literally what she said to me with like all her Connecticut sarcasm was like, yeah, I know. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, you have all the hallmark behaviors and belief systems of someone who grew up with trauma. And I had a backpack on because I was like 23. And I took my backpack off and was like, okay, let's go. And so then I did all this training and all this like, oh my God, the way that I felt different than everybody else is because I was different than everybody else because I didn't know another kid who knew that teenagers died. And all of the ways that my town and my family kind of fractured, like, that's all common, particularly when you don't have support. So I train, you guys. I'm like in it. I ditch the guy and I fall in love with therapy. I'm like, I train, I do all the Bessel van der Kolk trauma train. Like, the harder the training, the more Navy SEAL it is, the more I'm like, let's do it. The more money it costs, I'm all the way in. And I come out as a social worker and start a private practice, and I just start helping people. They come in and I'm like, I know what you got and I'm going to help you with this. And I got the tools and I got the things. And I do not think that I understood that I had created what I thought was like a life preserver for myself. If you know everything, then you can't be hurt by the things. And the beauty is, so in 2016, my dad was diagnosed with, right? That's it, right? Like, I'm going to protect. What is this? Every therapist, every physical therapist, everybody's like, oh, well, I needed this for myself, so I trained in it. So when my dad was diagnosed with cancer in 2016, I had helped so many people through all kinds of loss and all the symptoms of loss that they didn't realize were even related to their loss. So they would be coming in 18 months later saying, I haven't slept for 18 months. And I'd say, what happened 18 months ago? And they'd be like, well, my sister died, but I don't think that has anything to do with it. I'm like, no problem. Let me help you here. So my dad gets small cell cancer. I know he's dying. He knows he's dying. There isn't really a through line for my whole family. So it's a little crazy making in there. But I do what I think is sometimes true when you're caretaking. I mean, I was not responsible for his care, but I did a lot of like emotional support. Is I would go from my house in DC to his house on Cape Cod and just sort of like drink small cups of grief with him. It's like I was there's several gallons to drink, but I got to drink them. I wasn't waterboarded. I got to like participate in his death. And when he died, it was very hard. I was not that close with my dad. So this year that we had was actually sort of gentle and sweet. It was hard. I did the kind of therapy that I knew how to do. I did a retreat. And the horse that I sort of stepped off of to kind of be there and be a part of the process of his death, I was able to get back on that horse. I could still see the path in front of me. Like, I was married, I had kids, I had a practice, I had a full life. And it was like, okay, that was just sort of a stop on the path. And then 2 years later, while I was on vacation at her house, my mom, who I'm much closer to, but not the closest of all my siblings, she died of like an illness that she'd had a stomach bug, but she went to sleep and she didn't wake up. So she died suddenly in her sleep while I was there with my kids and my dog and my husband. And that was like the center pole of the circus coming down. Like it took the whole tent down. And almost immediately, like I talk about the woo-woo, I was driving from our house in Cape Cod to pick up my godson in Jamaica Plain, which is like an hour away in Boston. And my mom had been ill for a couple of weeks, but not the kind of ill that people were like, is she going to die?
Yeah.
Just like not eating, went to the doc. I took her to the emergency room. They were like hydration. But I was parked outside my best friend's house. My kids scrambled up to go get my godson, and I had the sensation of water breaking. So strongly, I was not pregnant, so strongly that I looked down at my lap expecting to see like wetness.
Wow.
And then when I looked up, I saw the words, she died. Like something on a Sesame Street, like block letters. I saw them come at me. And I called my husband, who was back at the house, and was like, have you seen my mom? And he was like, maybe she went to church, which was so insane because he had seen her also. Like she couldn't drive. She wasn't well. And I had to say to him, I know she's dead. You have to go into her room and check. And then I got in the car and I drove, I had all these kids in the car. Now I have an extra kid in my car with my 3 kids. Oh. I'm driving. I end up pulling off because my husband is like, you have to pull over. I'm not going to say this to you when you're driving. And ultimately, he didn't say it to me. I said it to him again. She's dead, isn't she? And I was in like a broken down parking lot in Braintree, Massachusetts with like an off-brand Dairy Princess, in the corner that had like closed years and years ago. And that was the very first time I heard and saw in my head, it's your fault. It's your fault she died. And because I am a clinician who is well-trained and has done this work for a long time, I was like, oh, shit. That intrusive thought could be the start of PTSD. And that's exactly what happened. That thought became relentless, like a dog. The first couple of days, I thought it a couple of times, but she died and I ended up calling all my siblings and being like, it's my fault she died. Like I said it to them. I said it to a woman, a friend of mine, who just in the importance of being honest, we did not make it through my mom's death. So like she was a really important friend then. And I love her for all the ways that she has been in my life, but we're not friends anymore. And in that moment, I said to her, like, I think it's my fault and I need to say that out loud. And I just need to say that out loud and I need you to hear it. And she said to me, and I'll never forget it, she said, I won't try to take that from you, but I am really sorry you feel that way. And I do not also believe it. And I was like, okay, she's not going to try to tell me it's not true because I kind of knew it wasn't true, right? I had the whole meta understanding of like, but it was like at the tiny part of me that was still a clinician and not a devastated daughter and like, somebody whose life was literally just like the continents were falling off the globe. Yeah. The clinician in me was like, oh shit. Like,
can we pause for a second? Because this is really important. I don't think people realize when they are experiencing PTSD.
Yes.
And I know that from my own life of like being like in it so deeply and then being told by people around me that I had PTSD. And I was like, what do you mean?
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about how we might know that that's what we're experiencing?
So one of the real difficulties is like, so even when I was diagnosed with PTSD, I was like, say it again? What? And they said like complex PTSD, right? Because that means there was other PTSD in my life that hadn't.
Same.
Right?
Mine started as a child. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And so when the psychiatrist first said that to me, it was like I wanted to hold it in my hands. It felt like this huge relief because it sounded so serious and I was so sick that I was like, I want to wear that like a necklace so people understand I'm not just being delicate. Like the number of people, and nobody means anything by it. But people will say to me like, oh, I couldn't fall apart because of my kids. I'm like, I had 3 fucking kids.
Yeah.
I fell all the way apart. And actually, it was my oldest daughter, her best friend, who is such a precious person in my life, rang the doorbell while I was in the house, like not functioning and lying about it, like almost like a little addict, like knowing, saying to people like, sure, I'll meet you for lunch, knowing I was going to call them 30 minutes ahead of time and pretend that I had just gotten a headache. My daughter's best friend rang the doorbell and said, hey, do you want to come out and play? And I was sort of like trapped in the basement. I'd thrown my back out because your body will insist, right, that you stop and you slow down and you attend to yourself if you don't do it of your own accord. So Claire said to Lucy, my daughter, do you want to come out and play? And I heard my daughter say, my mom isn't really doing well. I think I need to stay here for her. And I was like, oh, absolutely not. We are not beginning a codependent dance right now. And that was, I called a colleague and was like, I need help. And she was like, yep, you know what you need, but I will call you back. And even then, I don't think I really understood that I was admitting that I had PTSD. But to answer your question, I do actually think it's nearly impossible to fully have a picture of what's going on with you because your brain is so rotten. Like it is I studied all the neuroscience of what happens, and we are just not good self-reports. So it's almost, I myself was sort of like, I don't think it's that bad. And now, and I am like a Navy SEAL trained trauma therapist. And when I look back now, it takes my breath away because I'm like
glaringly obvious.
I was so sick, Liz. I was so, and I had to really work through like being mad at my husband, being mad at relatives, being mad at friends to be like, it was like I was like shooting up in front of you and you didn't know. But to your point, Nikki, like we don't teach anybody anything about grief and loss, which is like a rage space for me now. Like, A, I wanted to apologize to clients, and B, I actually don't think it's this delicate, like, why don't we do it? I think it is an absolute oppressive system designed to keep people in destructive states. And I think it's a social justice issue where it's like,
I totally agree
that women go down. We don't mind.
That was my earlier, I had so much training in social justice work.
Yeah.
And it took me moving through grief to realize that it is a social justice issue.
Absolutely. Who gets to grieve? I mean, my family has we have master's degrees. We run our own businesses. We have wealth that we inherited. It was really, really financially difficult for me to take the time off that I needed, which I took 6 months off and I needed 2 years off. I swear to God I did, because I was not sleeping, I was not eating, I was not functioning, and I certainly could not have gone back to holding the kind of energetic space that I was used to holding for my clients. And I didn't, and I actually never really have. I've never really gone back to that kind of trauma work.
Oh, Meghan, I was on set filming a movie about grief.
I read this.
4 weeks after my dad died, like an actual psychopath.
And everybody thinks that's fine. And you are
not
like,
just
no,
fine. It'll be good for you.
Fine.
It'll be good for you because it'll help you move through it. It'll help you heal. It'll help you. I spent 10 days straight not sleeping on the floor of the Sutton Hotel in Vancouver, like absolutely out of my mind. And I'm like, what am I What am I doing?
But it's so hard to stop the roll, right? Because there's all these people that depend on you. So to some degree, like, I threw my back out and couldn't get off the floor. I was like having to pee on a towel because I couldn't get back up. And I really think my body was like my best friend. I think my body was like my brother who used to like sit on me. And my body was like, no, we don't trust your decision making. So we're going to make you sit here. And it wasn't until I got a phone call from this saint from this treatment facility who said to me, he said these words, Chase said, I think you could get well here. And I just felt this like electrical, like move towards that, Meghan, go quickly. And so I said like, okay, I'm going to come. And then I fell asleep for the first time in like, I don't know, 20 days. I slept for like 6 hours and then I woke up and I got up and I hadn't been able to get up for 4 days. So I think, when we're asking the question about PTSD, one, it should be something that people are trained in, right? Like how to keep a bank account. Like there should be an understanding of what the core symptoms of PTSD are and what drive them. So I teach the grief mentor method, which is, I teach it to clinicians, but it's really designed to create a daily practice for people who are grieving, because other than crying, most people don't even know what grief is as a verb. They don't even know what it means or how to attend to it. So when I say to people, well, how do you sit with your grief? How are you with your grief? How do you converse with their grief? They'll say like, well, I was crying in the grocery store once. And I'm like, no, I don't mean when you're flooded with grief. I mean like the same way that you get hungry 3 times a day. It's sort of predictable. And so you have a thought process of like, well, it's good for me to have protein at lunch. Like, how do you attend to your grief? And that really becomes the beginning of the conversation in the grief mentor method, which has these 6 components. What people often say to me is, what if none of this works? What if none of these supportive tactics, people can rely on them and say, I have more skill now to attend to my grief? I'm like, that's great. Now that person needs to see a clinician. They need to see a trauma-informed clinician, because if none of the supportive, grief is not a mental illness. We've made it into a space where it's some kind of personal failing that you are feeling a loss instead of like a totally developmentally predictable experience, particularly for people, let's say 50 and older, because they're going to lose parents. Like we know it's going to happen, but we act like, oh, Liz, are you having a hard time? Like, yeah, I'm fucking having a hard time. Like, what?
Meghan,
What do you
my
mean?
husband,
You're only allowed to have it for like a specific
3
amount of
months.
time, right?
There's some
but
data
not
that it's
just
3
that.
months.
You guys, my dad died, and then days later, like we buried my dad, and then I got on a flight the next day to go because it was COVID and I couldn't bring my child. And so my husband, kids had to go. I had to do it alone without them. So then I travel back to meet up with them. Just buried my dad. I land with my husband that night. I'm trying to be very honest with him about how I'm feeling, because I know emotions scare him. And I say, I just need you to know I'm not okay. And his first thing was, what do you mean you need to go on medicine? You need to go on medication? What do you mean you're not okay? Like it totally.
Are you still married, Nikki?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just checking before we ask.
Yes, but like, and then we're 3 months in, and we're talking to the therapist, and he's like, I just want to know what the end date of this is. And the therapist just laughed and was like,
never.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
It's the rest of her life. What are you talking about? Like he literally, like it was such a, and I'm saying this because I know there are women and men probably listening to this that is like, what if the call's coming from inside the house? What if the person that doesn't understand your grief the most is the person who's supposed to be loving and supporting you the most? That's so hard.
I had that when my dad was sick. Well, so I want to distinguish this because when I write about this in End of the Hour, I think part of the reason I write about it is like for the sake of the spectrum of grief, right? Yeah. My dad's death was a death that was sad and hard, but I don't call that profound loss. It was like predictable developmental loss. Profound loss is when the north drops off your compass and the continents fall off the earth and you have to kind of publicly in real time figure out how to become a person again. And a lot of people around you are waiting for you to go back to who you were, and they are not going to make it because it's not. But what I was going to say about the sort of like intimate relationship is like you almost can't blame them, right? Like your husband knows you as that person for all the time he's known you. My mother said this thing to me when I was getting married, and I thought it was such a shitty thing. My mom and I were like close, but she was tough. And she, on my wedding day, said, "You think this is the most important day of your life?" My husband and I had been together for 4 years before we got married. It was like not simple for me to do the secure attachment. And she said, you think this is the most important day of your life, but you have no idea how you're going to be called upon to love each other. You know, she was married to my dad for 50 years. She had 6 kids.
Wow.
They did not have an easy time. And I was sort of like, fuck you, lady. Like, I am wearing a pretty dress. Just tell me I look pretty.
Yeah.
And I think about this now.
Just tell me I'm going to be in love forever.
Right. Just like when I went into treatment there, and I write about this in the book, there's a whole conversation, like an argument with my husband, because my kids were little. And when they were little, I worked kind of part-time. I have a developmental degree. I have a degree in developmental education. So I was sort of like, this is what we're doing with the kids. And these are the books. And this is the thing. And so I kind of had to like drop the keys to the kingdom and be like, good luck finding the dentist because you've never been there. You know, I dropped the keys to the kingdom on his lap and I had this insane fight with him on the way. And meanwhile, you have to understand that the crown that my husband wears is that he is the best. He is the kindest. He is the sweetest. My mother used to say to me, like, he is too good for you. He is the smartest. He's the quietest. He has no ego. He is just everyone. Oh, he's the most thoughtful gift giver. So when my husband got it really wrong when my dad was dying, like really the fuck wrong, like he was starting a company and he was in France a lot of the time. And so I hired a babysitter and I did that. You know, I just backfilled because that's what you do. I remember Michelle Obama saying about Barack, like, well, then I moved my mother into the house because I knew he wasn't going to be parenting.
You set up the system.
I got another parent, right? So I had already sort of backfilled for my husband. And then I was away and he was not seeing the toll that my dad's dying was taking on me. And then we had this moment where my dad had died and my kids were, you know, I had to tell the kids and then I had to like hold one of my kids in order to help him cry. And I came downstairs, you know, it's like midnight from this horrible day. And I came downstairs just knowing my husband was going to be like holding, like had been sitting there for hours holding a melting gin and tonic, just waiting to like hug me and rub my feet. And he was not even in the living room. And I came in and was like, well, I'm sure he'll be here. He must be making my gin and tonic. I don't drink anymore, but he must be making my gin and tonic. And I sat there and was like checking my phone. And then I was like, where the fuck is he? And I walk into the office and he's like on his computer. And I said like in this tone, you know the tone that you use. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what is happening? And he looks up and he's like, oh, I'll be right there. And I mean, I write about it. My publisher at the time was like, I don't know if we can put this chapter in. Because I was like, get the fuck out of this house. Like the whole chapter is just me saying fuck. Like, get out. I don't fucking need you. I never needed you. Like, you are a dead weight. Like, how dare you? I mean, I literally was, if I could have pushed his body out I in my mind, I was like, we're done with him. We'll never see him again.
Yeah, but Meghan, you just needed a place to put your anger at the time. I think, you know, I've been thinking this, like from the moment Nikki said the story about Ryan, like I think guys really get a tough rap when it comes to grief and to handling the grieving. And I've thought about this so much. I'm actually like, I'm getting my master's in counseling right now. And I'm in a, like a life cycle development class right now. And I think that men have been so pre-programmed. By society for so many years to shut down their emotions. And so that coming from one side, I still remember my stepdad, well, not that he told me this, but my mom did. They were on the plane back from my brother's funeral.
Hi,
We're
Michael.
going to get there, guys. We have
Hi, Michael. Hi, Michael.
But they were on the way back from the funeral, like on the airplane. I don't know why I just gave airplane a different accent grave there. But anyway, they're on the airplane and he looks over at my mom and he goes, well, now everything can go back to normal. And he had been terminal, you know, like whatever. It's like what you were saying before, you know, sometimes like you lose your compass but not if like you have enough time to plan. Well, I think if you lose your kid, you lose everything.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that, you know, but he didn't mean, of course she took it time with absolute vitriol and anger and like, what the hell are you talking about? Or what is life going to go back to normal? Like never, you know, I just lost my baby. But I think in men's minds, sometimes they get, and if you're a guy and you're listening to this and you're like, well, I didn't mean to like not be sensitive. I think men's utmost desire in so many of these cases is to protect us and to make everything better and to soothe and to
give
just
us
like
hope.
make it all okay.
Yeah.
And so when we're not okay, they're very destabilized and they're like, well, what do I do now? You know, if she's not okay and she's not functioning, then I'm not sure what to do with that. There was a day, and Nikki knows what I'm talking about. I can't see your face. You're frozen. So I'm kind of glad right now. But there was like something that happened right before my mom died that was really bad. And I've been through a lot in my life, like a whole lot. And pretty much nothing has ever taken me out before to where I'm like comatose, can't function, just like a zombie face.
Yeah.
And this one particular thing did.
And
it was really bad. And I just like sat there and for about 5 straight hours, just off and on cried.
Yeah.
Couldn't move, couldn't mother, couldn't parent, couldn't do any of the things. And then we went to bed that night, got up the next day, and it like I was the exact same, except for a little bit worse because my mom was even worse and I couldn't do anything about it. And he saw me like that for like 12 hours straight.
Yeah.
And it did something bad. Like he was legitimately scared.
And my husband was scared.
To it multiple times. This is almost 3 years ago, and he has referred to it multiple times. Like, that's the only time in my life I've been actually scared. And it wasn't even over something that was happening to him. Isn't that fascinating?
That's right.
He was scared like his person.
Yeah, that's right. His attachment was disintegrating.
Anxious attachment. There you go. There you go.
But I think you're totally right, Liz. Like you're talking about something and there's a researcher, Doka, and his colleagues that really distinguish the difference of like intuitive grief, which is what we think of as like crying and emotional, and instrumental grief, which is more like this masculine of like, I mean, I've had men be like, I'd never grieve my dad after telling me they spent a year like selling his house and selling off his baseball cards. And I'm like, guess, you know, that's grief also. Crying is not the only way that we grieve. But I do, again, when I look at like what's wrong with the system, it serves no one. Like men get to have no, you know, you guys read my bio. I do a lot of corporate work. When I walk in, they don't even know we're talking about grief and loss because I don't use that language. Because if I talk about grief and loss, people think I'm only talking about death. And, you know, corporations where they really struggled was during COVID. We had to keep the like global economy moving. So we just took our computers, we did our work at home, and we acted like we weren't constantly terrified that someone we loved was going to die or burying people. And then we never discussed it. We never got together and said, like, oh my God, what was that like for you? It's like my childhood all over again.
I have a theory when it comes to COVID. It's 9/11. When 9/11 happened to this country, you can mark the way that people behave, even our politics. You can track it back to like all of a sudden we began reacting out of fear as a culture.
Yeah.
Which made us more hateful, which made us more divisive, which made us lose our humanity.
I totally agree.
Made us join cults.
Yeah.
You know, because at least if I belong in this cult and this cult will protect me, like it did something to us as a country.
Totally
and I think COVID, same. And then everybody was like, yeah, mask offs, moving on. Well, COVID doesn't exist. What do you mean COVID exists? People moved to places in the world where essentially COVID didn't exist. So they didn't have to live in the fear of COVID existing because at the end of the day, what we do not have as a society, any of us, the one thing they should be teaching us from the time we are in kinder that they don't ever teach is a coping mechanism for anything.
That's right. But part of the thing that humans can't do is feel helpless, even though we are helpless, right? Like and so when I look at, you know, so what happened, my mom died about 6 months before COVID. I spent 28 days in treatment. I did another sort of part of my treatment in Bali. I came back. We cleaned out her house because that needed to happen. And it was this insane sort of sacred, like, I was the only one who could do it because COVID, you couldn't mix and mingle. So even though I have 5 brothers and sisters, and I sort of insisted that it be me, and I went to her home and I literally touched and packaged and put everything that it was like the last laying on of hands for me. And then it was like, oh, are you going to go back to your life in Maryland? And I was like, I literally, I mean, we had a conversation, and this is one of those ways where I'm like, I really think there is this quantum sort of energy that sometimes
Yes.
has your best interest at heart and will shift and move, because it was my middle son who came to my husband and I. Well, what my middle son said was, do we have a map, a road map? And I was like, no one has a road map anymore. And he was like, can I get one? I need it for a project. So I drove him to a gas station. He went in with his mask. He came back out with a road map. And then 2 days later, he said, please meet us in the dining room. We have a presentation. And so, complete with like a soundtrack, he had plotted something my husband and I had discussed, and there's no way he knew about, taking a road trip across the United States. So Daniel had come up with, like, for 2 weeks, let's get in the car and go see. His road trip ended at the largest ball of twine in Kansas. Now, my road trip did not, but I remember that, like, him giving the presentation and me looking at my husband and being like, I can't like, I've done my fight response. I need my flight response. I can't go home and be normal. I can't sit on my porch where I was sick. I can't. And I really had a lot of feeling about how many clients I had sort of been like, no sudden movements. And now I'm like, oh, I need to sprint all day long. Like, the energy that's in me is like a jetpack. I also didn't understand that I was really being drawn, as the universe sometimes does, out into nature to heal in nature. And so I needed, like, the vastness of dark skies and, like, the cliff of the Grand Canyon. And I've studied this now, and it's like my system invented that without knowing anything. And it turns out, like, oh, I read all of Dacher Keltner's work on awe, and I was like, oh, I thought I invented this. But no, Dacher's been studying it for decades. And I love
his work on awe.
It's so amazing.
I think it's so beautiful.
Oh, so what it does is it reminds us that we instinctively actually know how to attend to grief. And the more you talk about it, and, in my groups, when I'm teaching clinicians or when I'm in a corporate space and I'm talking about, I'm saying, what was it like for you in COVID? One of the questions I always ask is, did you find yourself doing anything that seemed odd to you, like returning to old behaviors, or did you start anything new? And people will say, it was so weird. I haven't played the violin since I was in 4th grade, but I felt this need to pick it up. And I'm like, yeah, because sometimes the energy of loss needs to move through music. And so that could be listening music, and it could be playing music. But the minute I start to bring in what all of my clients have told me they have instinctively done, it becomes this scaffolding where it's like, oh no, every single person is unique. Every single individual has a different experience. But if you think about it like hunger, I have no idea what you ate for lunch, and you have no idea what I ate for lunch. You ate what your body needed. I ate what my body needed. I don't even need to have a discussion with you about it to know that you're going to do a good job with lunch tomorrow, and so am I. And if I have disordered eating, I will go see a clinician. But when it comes to grief, that's what we have to be able to do, is say, like, Nikki, are you feeding yourself in this way? And if you say, I don't really know how to do that, like, I don't really know then I can give you the emotional, nutritional counseling of saying, let me tell you how other people do it. And then your job is to go come up with an idea. You know what? I really think a yoga class could be good. My body kind of wants to move. And then you experiment. You go to a yoga class, and then you're like, what is this hot nonsense of holding these movements? I hate it here. I hate the smell. I hate the tone. I hate the music. And you come out and you say, it wasn't yoga for me. And then you say, but I did like the moving of my body. I liked being out of my house. Maybe I'll do meditation. Maybe I'll walk with a friend. And you just begin to adapt, and you begin to adapt. But without pairing that to, this is a grief practice, that becomes this nonsense wellness. Or stress, right? Like, the word stress is such a weapon, particularly against women. If I say to you, hey, what's going on? And you say, well, I'm really stressed. What I think you're telling me is you have a deadline at work, and maybe like an asshole boss, and that maybe you haven't really run your time well. And that, if you were only getting up a little bit earlier and doing a little more Pilates, you would be more centered and balanced, because that is what the wellness world has told us, and particularly women. But if you said to me, Meghan, I'm grieving. I'm launching my kid this year, and I'm just, every minute that I'm with them, I'm feeling the loss of them. I see you, Liz. I see you. Right? Or if you say, Megan, I'm just like, I'm experiencing the loss of, like my job, and I'm not booking gigs the way that I used to. And that's stress. But see how your faces just totally shifted from like,
Everything softens.
well, you're just, what ends up happening is you're like, my loss sees your loss. Namaste. Like, I get it. You just made me understand that you are going through something. Right? Like the women in the Victorian era who wore like a black armband, and everyone's like, oh, that widow has been in mourning for 8 months. I can tell from the color and the position of the band. But we instead are like, where's Nikki? Oh, she's at therapy. Like, where's Liz? Well, she's been having a hard time since her brother died 3 months ago. Like, thanks, Julie. Of course she is.
Yeah.
Well, where is she? Well, she didn't come in this morning. Like, it's not, we are making it sound like you are somehow a loser because you're experiencing loss, instead of what we actually know to be true, which is life is filled with hellacious, painful experiences that we will all get through. We don't know how to get through them. Oh my God, people who have lost a child. What is the thing, right? The thing that someone says is, oh, I could never survive that. Okay, Linda, neither can this woman.
Now,
But
neither
she's
can
going to
they.
become that person. She's going to do it right in front of our very eyes.
Yes.
So you being like, oh, you're so strong. Like, what fucking choice does she have? It's this or die. Like, it's
my
this or die.
My friend just wrote, she lost her son, Georgie. And it was actually, we had his service on the first anniversary of my dad's passing. And I was going to go home to be with my family, and I stayed to be with her. And she wrote about this the other day. Anybody in grief, her name is Heart Mom Kelly on Instagram. Follow her.
I know.
She's like, I hate it when people, not hate it, she's like, but when people tell me I'm strong, I don't see that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like that's not what this feels like.
You're softer.
And she said, it's just love. Like, I'm still here because I have my daughter to love and my husband to love, and she has a new baby, to love.
Wow.
She's like, but I'm not still here because I'm strong. And just reading that the other day brought me to tears, because it's like she's, one of a handful of friends that I have who have lost children. And, we do think of that like the unfathomable, except it is their reality. And they are picking themselves up and somehow moving through their day. You just don't die.
So when people say like they survived it, I'm like, they didn't survive it. They just didn't die. And it's not the same, right? So it's, Liz, I'm thinking about your brother, Michael, and how one of the things that I hear from people all the time is that like sibling loss just goes totally under the carpet, that people... that it's not that too, you can be saying my brother died, a year ago, and people are like, how is your mom? And then you're like, oh, my mom also died. But there is this need that people have to elevate people who have survived child loss to some kind of sainthood, instead of, we're just fucking people who didn't die yet from this pain, but we did not survive. We are not intact. We are not okay. I remember when a lot of part of the reason that I wrote End of the Hour is that I have all the training. I have an unbelievable, resourceful team of good people. The Cliff Notes version on my husband is that after my mom died, we changed my marriage a lot. Like he took on a lot of those tasks. The fight that we had, which was about paper towels and how he was going to have 2 different carts in the grocery store because the paper towels take up all the whole cart. And he was like, really offended. He was like, I have a master's degree. I can figure this out. And I was like, fuck you, man. It's hard to buy paper towels. And what did he do? He ordered them from Amazon because he has a different way of doing things, right? So the navigating of who we were then, I am not that person. My daughter applied to college this year and I didn't even know where she was applying. Like my kids go to the one of my kids took himself to a dentist appointment today because I didn't know what was happening and my husband is out of town. Like the way that I was the general contractor never returned. My whole marriage took a hard right. And I, part of what the language that we haven't been able to figure out how to invite is the like, what is the impact of this on you? You tell me. Is it a spiritual impact, right? Is it a physical impact? Like the worst is when people lose 60 pounds and someone's like, you look great.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
do I look great? Because this is the death of my sister. Thank you so much. Right? Like I need to be able to tell you what this is. And you have to be able to listen to that. Not you tell me what makes you comfortable.
Okay. So guys, I think we have two choices right now. One, we've talked about a lot and we've had an hour. So I vote for hour number 2 and us doing a second podcast because I think that we could speak. Are you down?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Oh my God.
So guys, I think we have covered a lot. I think there's so much more to go. I had 2 special guests I was going to introduce, and we were going to talk about what do you do post-death when it's years later and you still don't know if you found closure. And I think that could be a very great second window for us to move into. In addition to talking about maybe what to do if you have unresolved grief or you are currently grieving, either anticipatory grief or ambiguous grief, and you don't understand it. So if you are interested in this topic as much as Nikki and I am, Nikki, you're still frozen. I still can't see you. So hopefully when we relog back on, it's going to be better and I'll see your face moving. But guys, thank you for this hour that you have been with us. We are going to come right back next week with more of Meghan, and we will see you next time. Thanks for being with us.